Just stay here, Dad. We'll grab the luggage and be right back. That sentence was the last shovel of dirt on my grave, or so they thought. I sat on the curb for an hour, shivering without a coat or a passport, realizing my own son had just erased me from his life to cash in on my death. They thought I was a senile old man lost in a dementia fog, but they made one critical mistake. They didn't check to see if I'd actually swallowed the blue pill. The fog was gone, the clarity was back, and I was about to destroy the serial killer who had been hiding in my own house. If you want to see justice served, subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from right now. That was the last thing my son said to me. His voice was too bright, too loud for the gray morning air. I sat on the cold metal bench outside the terminal. The steel bit through my trousers, seeping a dull ache into my hips. I watched Robert. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was a tight, nervous grimace, the same expression I used to see on surgeons right before they told a family that the operation had failed. Brenda, his wife, leaned in. She kissed my cheek. Her lips felt cold and hard like polished marble. "Don't move, Arthur," she said, her voice smooth and practiced. "We don't want you getting lost again." I nodded. I was good at nodding. For 6 months, that was my job. Nod, swallow the pills, sleep, let the world blur into soft gray shapes. I was a passenger in my own life, strapped in and waiting for the crash. They walked away. The choreography was perfect. Robert pushed the heavy cart. Brenda pulled her red suitcase, the wheels clacking rhythmically against the pavement. Chloe, my granddaughter, trailed behind them. She was 12, but today she looked younger, smaller. She stopped and looked back at me. Her eyes were wide, filled with a frantic energy I couldn't understand. She raised a hand, her fingers trembling, as if she wanted to wave or signal something. Then Robert's hand clamped onto her shoulder. It wasn't a gentle touch, it was a grip. He steered her toward the sliding glass doors. The doors hissed open, then hissed shut. The seal was airtight. I was alone. I looked at my watch. It was an old analog piece, one of the few things they hadn't taken away from me yet. 8:30 a.m., right back, Robert had said. I wrapped my thin windbreaker tighter around my chest. The May wind in Boston wasn't supposed to be this cold. It carried the smell of diesel fumes and damp concrete. It cut right through to the bone. People rushed past me, a river of travelers, families hugging, weeping, laughing, businessmen barking into phones, checking schedules. I waited. I was Arthur Miller. I was 71 years old. For 40 years, I had been a perfusionist. I ran the heart-lung bypass machines during open-heart surgeries. My job was flow, pressure, oxygen, and timing. I knew how to keep life moving when the heart had stopped, but now I felt like the machine had been turned off. I was just waiting for the flatline. Time didn't flow. It dripped, thick and slow. 8:45 a.m., 9:15 a.m., 9:30 a.m. 1 hour, my legs started to cramp, a sharp knot tightening in my calf. The cold wasn't just on my skin anymore, it was in my marrow. But as I sat there, shivering, something else was happening. A change in pressure. The fog in my head, it was lifting. For 6 months my mind had been a soup of confusion. Names slipped through my fingers like water, faces melted together. I would walk into a room and forget why I was there. Early onset Alzheimer's, Brenda had declared. She said it with a strange sort of satisfaction. "Take your pill, Arthur," she would say every morning at breakfast, handing me a glass of bitter orange juice. "It helps your memory. It keeps the bad days away." But this morning, amidst the chaos of packing and the rush for the taxi, I had done something different. I reached into my pocket. My fingers, stiff from the cold, brushed against a small round object. The blue pill. I hadn't taken it. I pulled the pill out and held it in my palm. It sat there, small and blue and innocent looking. I stared at it. My vision, usually blurry by this time of day, was sharpening. I could see the tiny scored line down the center. As the chemical fog cleared from my brain, logic began to return. I used to calculate blood flow rates in seconds during a crisis. Now, I looked at this pill and realized it wasn't medicine. It was a leash. Today, for the first time since October, the leash was off. I stood up. My knees popped loudly, a gunshot sound in the busy pickup lane. I looked at the curb where Robert had parked the rental car. Empty. I closed my eyes and replayed the drop-off. My memory was supposed to be broken, but it was working now. I remembered the trunk popping open. I remembered the heavy thud of luggage hitting the ground. Robert's large black suitcase. Brenda's hard-shell red one. Chloe's pink backpack. 3 bags. Not 4. My heart hammered against my ribs. Tachycardia. I noted automatically. Rate increasing. BP rising. I patted my pockets frantically. Wallet? Gone. Passport? Brenda had taken it last night. For safekeeping, she'd said. So, you don't lose it like your glasses. Phone? I checked the inside pocket of my jacket. I felt the smooth glass. I pulled it out. The screen was black. Dead. I stood on the sidewalk, swaying slightly as the realization hit me like a physical blow to the chest. No luggage. No ID. No money. No ticket. They hadn't just left me behind by accident. They hadn't just forgotten me. They had erased me. I turned slowly toward the terminal doors. The automatic sensor caught my movement, and the gauze slid open. I caught my reflection in the dark pane. I saw a gray-haired man in a rumpled shirt. I saw a man who looked lost, frail, and confused. That's what they saw, a confused old man who would wander away and be the state's problem. But I looked closer at the reflection. The eyes were sharpening. The dull, glazed look of the last 6 months was gone. I wasn't confused. Not anymore. I was angry. I pushed through the doors, and the noise hit me. A wall of announcements, rolling wheels, and chatter. The air inside was warm, recycled, and smelled of coffee. I didn't wander. I didn't stumble. I walked with the purpose of a man entering the operating theater. I scanned the check-in counters. No sign of Robert. No sign of the red suitcase. I walked faster, ignoring the pain in my legs. I needed to know. I needed to see the data. In my line of work, you didn't guess. You verified. I headed straight for the information desk. I was going to find the truth, even if it killed me. I approached the counter. The woman behind it was typing, her eyes scanning the screen with the glazed look of someone halfway through a double shift. Her name tag read, Susan Davis. She didn't look up immediately. I stood there, my hands gripping the edge of the Formica counter to steady the tremors starting in my fingers. Was it the cold, or was it the withdrawal from whatever chemical cocktail was in that blue pill? "Can I help you, sir?" she finally asked. Her voice was polite, robotic. She expected a question about baggage limits or gate changes. "My son," I said. My voice came out like gravel, rusty and weak. I cleared my throat, forcing my diaphragm to work. I needed to sound like a man, not a patient. "My son, Robert Miller. I need to know if he checked in." Susan frowned, a small crease appearing between her eyebrows. Her professional armor clicked into place. "Sir, I can't give out passenger information. It's against security protocol." She started to turn back to her screen, dismissing me. To her, I was just background noise. I leaned further over the counter. "Please." He told me to wait outside. He's been gone an hour. He has my luggage. My wallet. She stopped typing. She looked up, really looked at me this time. She saw the rumpled jacket, the gray hair, the way my knuckles were white against the counter. But she also saw my eyes. I wasn't looking at her with confusion. I was looking at her with terror. She hesitated, the human instinct to help ward with the corporate mandate to ignore. Slowly, her hands moved back to the keyboard. Click, click, click. The sound was agonizingly loud in the quiet space between announcements. Her face changed. The professional mask slipped, revealing something raw underneath. Her eyes widened slightly, then darted back to me. "Robert Miller," she said slowly, reading from the screen. "Yes," I breathed. "Flight UA-82 to Cape Town via London Heathrow." Cape Town. The words hung in the air like smoke. South Africa. Not a weekend trip. Not a domestic flight. They were crossing an ocean. "Is he on it?" I asked. She looked up at me. Her eyes were no longer tired. They were full of a sharp, stinging pity. "The flight checked in 3 passengers, sir." My heart skipped a beat. A PVC, premature ventricular contraction. 3? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I had counted the bags. I had done the math. Robert Miller, Brenda Miller, Chloe Miller. 3. The number was a cold, hard fact. A mathematical certainty. And Arthur Miller, I whispered. Susan shook her head. She didn't look at the screen anymore. She couldn't. No ticket found for an Arthur Miller. No reservation. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I gripped the counter harder. 3 weeks, Brenda had told me over dinner last night. Just a nice family vacation. You'll love the sapphires, Arthur. Lies. It was all lies. Every smile, every reassurance, every pill. They weren't just leaving me. They were fleeing, and they had dumped me here on the curb like a bag that weighed too much to carry. Sir? Susan came around the desk. She moved quickly, abandoning her post. Are you okay? You look pale. I felt like I was underwater. The noise of the terminal was muffled, distant. They left me, I said. The words tasted like ash. Do you want me to call security or a doctor? No, I said. My mind was racing now, connecting dots I hadn't been able to see for months. Not yet. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the blue pill. I held it up to the light. They told me I had Alzheimer's, I said, my voice gaining strength. They said I was losing my mind. But I think they've been poisoning me to keep me quiet. Susan stared at the pill in my hand. Then she looked at the desperation in my face. She made a decision. Come with me, she said. She led me away from the exposed counter, guiding me into a small, windowless back office. She closed the door, cutting off the noise of the terminal. The sudden silence was heavy. My sister is a lawyer, Susan said, pulling out a chair for me. She handles elder abuse cases. You need to tell me exactly what is happening. I sat down. I told her everything. The fog that started in October. The lost memories. The doctor Brenda took me to who never looked me in the eye. The constant sleepiness. The financial papers I had signed without reading because my vision was too blurry. Susan listened, taking notes on a yellow pad. Her pen moved fast. Is there anyone else? She asked. Anyone we can call? Your granddaughter? Chloe? I said. A fresh wave of panic hit me. But she's with them. She's innocent. Susan checked the wall clock. If she's past security, they are boarding now. The gate closes in 10 minutes. I need to talk to her. Susan didn't argue. She handed me her personal cell phone. I dialed Chloe's number. My fingers trembled so bad I misdialed the first. I took a breath. Focus, Arthur. Steady hands. I dialed again. Ring, ring, ring. Answer it, Chloe. Please. Hello? Her voice was small, scared. The background noise was a roar of engines and announcements. Chloe, I said. Grandpa. Her voice pitched up in panic. Where are you? Dad said you were in the bathroom. We're getting on the plane. He said you're right behind us? Lies, I said, cutting through the noise. It's a lie, honey. I'm outside, Chloe. They left me at the curb. They never bought me a ticket. Silence on the line, the kind of silence where a world shatters. Then a gasp. What? No, Dad said. They abandoned me, I said, keeping my voice steady, anchoring her. And the pills, they aren't medicine. They're making me sick. They're poison. Grandpa, stop. That's crazy. Mom says you're confused. Is it? Look at your ticket, Chloe. Does it have a seat for me next to you? I heard the rustle of paper. Look at your parents. Are they looking for me? Or are they looking at the gate agent, trying to get on that plane as fast as possible? I heard her breathing. Fast. Shallow. Keep her ventilating. They're handing over the passes, she whispered. Dad is sweating. Chloe, listen to me, I said. This was the most important instruction I would ever give. If you get on that plane, I will never see you again, and you will be alone with him. I'm scared, she cried. Do you trust me? A pause. A heartbeat. Yes. Then run. Chloe. It was Robert's voice. Distant, but angry. Get off the phone. We have to go. I have to go back. Chloe yelled, her voice moving away from the phone. You can't leave. Robert screamed. Get back here. Get off me, Chloe shrieked. I heard scuffling sounds. The sickening thud of a phone hitting the carpet. A chaotic mix of shouting and security alarms. Then the line went dead. I stared at the black screen. Chloe? Nothing. Susan watched me, her face pale. What happened? She's running, I said. Or they caught her. We waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Every second was a drop of acid. Had Robert dragged her onto the plane? Was she trapped in a metal tube at 30,000 feet, with 2 people who were willing to erase her grandfather? The office door burst open. Chloe stood there. Her hair was wild. Her face was streaked with mascara and tears. She was panting, her chest heaving like she had run a marathon. She saw me. She dropped her pink backpack and collapsed into my arms. She hit me with the force of a collision. I'm sorry, she sobbed into my shirt. I'm so sorry, Grandpa. I didn't know. I held her tight. I smelled the airport dust in her hair. My arms, weak for months, felt strong again. I wasn't alone anymore. A police officer stepped in behind her. Officer Wilson. He looked stern, breathless. She caused quite a scene, Wilson said, eyeing me suspiciously, screaming about kidnapping. They tried to force her, I said, not letting go of Chloe. Her parents boarded, Wilson said, shaking his head. Flight took off 5 minutes ago. Doors were already closed when the altercation happened. They left her? I asked, incredulous. They left their own daughter? They didn't have a choice, Chloe whispered, pulling back to look at me. Her eyes were red. I screamed that they were kidnapping me. Security started coming. Dad, he looked at me, and then he just turned around and ran down the jet bridge. The room fell silent. Robert had made his choice. He had chosen escape over his child. We need to get you out of here, Susan said, standing up. If they have any sense, they'll call a lawyer when they land, or try to contact the police here to claim you're incompetent. Where? Chloe wiped her eyes. My sister, Linda Davis. She lives in Vermont. Stowe, Susan said. It's quiet, isolated. You'll be safe there while we figure this out. I nodded. Stowe, mountains, cold air. A place to think, a place to plan. Susan drove us in her sedan. We left the chaos of Boston behind, the skyline fading into a gray blur in the rearview mirror. I sat in the passenger seat, watching the highway markers flash by. Sip, 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 like a heart monitor. Every police car we passed made my chest tighten. Were they looking for us? Had Robert called them, claiming his demented father had kidnapped his daughter? Tell me about the last 6 months, Chloe said softly from the back seat. Her voice was barely audible over the hum of the tires. I took a deep breath. It started in October. I forgot where I parked at the grocery store. Just once. But Brenda, she made a big deal of it. She called the doctor that night, Chloe whispered. She told me you were wandering the streets. I wasn't, I said, the memory sharpening. I was just in the wrong aisle. She told me you forgot my birthday, Chloe said. Her voice cracked. She said you didn't care anymore. I turned around in my seat, ignoring the stiffness in my neck. I didn't forget, Chloe. I bought you a card, a funny one with a cat on it. I put a $50 bill inside. I hid it in my desk drawer so I wouldn't lose it. Chloe looked away, staring out the window at the passing trees. She told me you threw it out. She said you got angry and tore it up. Small lies. Tiny cuts. One by one, they had severed my ties to reality. She isolated you, Susan said, her hands tight on the steering wheel. It's classic predator behavior. Make the victim doubt their own mind, cut off their support system. Then take control. I looked at my hands. They were steady now. The anger was burning the fog away. We arrived in Stowe as the sun was setting. The mountains were dark purple bruises against the sky. The air here was different, clean, sharp, smelling of pine and wood smoke. We pulled up a long gravel driveway to a cabin tucked into the woods. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney. It looked peaceful. It looked like a fortress. A woman stepped out onto the porch. She was wearing a thick wool sweater and holding a mug. Martha, my sister. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. Brenda had told me Martha didn't want to see me. She's busy, Arthur. She doesn't have time for your episodes. Martha ran down the steps before the car even stopped. She pulled the door open and hugged me so hard my ribs creaked. She smelled like cinnamon and old books. "I thought you were dead," she whispered into my ear. "Brenda told me you were in a home. She said you didn't recognize anyone." "Not yet," I said, holding her back. "I'm still here." We went inside. The cabin was warm, filled with the kind of clutter that makes a house a home. Susan laid it all out at the kitchen table. The airport, the pills, the escape. Martha listened, her face hardening like stone. She was always the tough one. "I know a toxicologist," Martha said, standing up and pacing the kitchen. "Dr. Sarah Edwards. She's an old friend. We can get that pill tested tonight." My phone buzzed on the table. I had turned it back on, just in case. A text from Robert. "Dad, please. We're worried sick." "Where are you?" "Chloe's confused." "Call us." "Don't answer," Martha warned, reaching for the phone. I looked at the screen. The words were polite, concerned, but I knew the voice behind them now. It was the voice of a man losing his grip on a fortune. "I won't," I said. I powered the phone down. I couldn't sleep that night. The silence of the woods was too loud after the constant noise of Robert's house. I wandered the cabin. My legs ached, but I needed to move. I found myself at the bookshelf in the den. I pulled out a stack of old National Geographics. Behind them, tucked in the shadows, was a small, black notebook. I frowned. It was my handwriting on the spine. Private. I opened it. The pages were crinkled. My heart stopped. November 12th. I feel strange today. The blue pills make me dizzy. I saw a dog in the yard that wasn't there. December 4th. Brenda is lying about the doctor. His name isn't on the office door. January 10th. If I lose my mind, check the safe. I think they are hiding papers. I had known, even in the fog, even when the drugs were strongest. A part of me, the perfusionist, the man who monitored life, had been fighting back. I had left clues for myself. "Grandpa?" Chloe stood on the stairs, wrapped in a quilt. I held up the notebook, my hand shaking with relief. I wasn't crazy, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I was trapped, but I was fighting. Morning came with a gray steel light. We drove to the lab in town. Dr. Sarah Edwards met us at the back door. She had a stern face and a white coat that smelled of antiseptic. She took the blue pill from me with tweezers. "Give me 2 hours," she said. "I'll run a full-spectrum analysis." We waited in Linda Davis's office. Linda was Susan's sister, sharp, fast-talking, with eyes that missed nothing. She looked at the computer screen. "There's a silver alert out for you, Arthur. Missing Arthur Miller, 71, advanced Alzheimer's. May be confused and combative. He's using the loose to harass you," Linda said, tapping the screen. "He wants you found and institutionalized before you can change your will." "He wants me back under control," I said. "He needs the body to get the money." The phone rang. It was Dr. Edwards. Linda put it on speaker. The room went deadly quiet. "It's not Alzheimer's medication," Edwards said. Her voice was clipped, angry. "What is it?" I asked. "It's a cocktail, high-dose sedatives, benzodiazepines, and traces of a powerful hallucinogen usually used in veterinary medicine." Martha gasped. "Chemical restraint. They were killing me," I said. The realization was cold, like ice water in my veins. They were scrambling my brain so I would look incompetent. "Slowly," Linda said, "so it would look like a natural decline. If you died of a stroke or a fall, no one would question it." Chloe put her head in her hands. Her shoulders shook. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would they do this? Dad makes good money. We have a nice house." Linda's computer pinged. She opened a new file. "I had my investigator, Tom Richards, run a financial check on your son this morning." She stared at the screen. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. What?" I asked. I braced myself. "Your son is broke, Arthur. He's not just broke. He is drowning. He's $2.01 in debt." "Crypto?" I asked. "Crypto, online gambling, high-risk stocks. Impossible," I said. "He has a good job. He drives a Mercedes." "He lost the job 6 months ago," Linda said. "He's been faking it. He goes to work every day and sits in a coffee shop. I shook my head. The level of deception was staggering. He's desperate, Linda said. And you have assets. The house, the pension, the savings. If you disappear in South Africa, Linda explained, her voice hard, he gets power of attorney immediately. He claims you wandered off into the bush. A tragic accident. He drains your accounts, Martha added. And if I die, he inherits everything. It fixes his debt instantly. It wasn't just a vacation. It wasn't just a trip to see the lions. It was an execution. They were going to take me to the other side of the world, confuse me with drugs, and let me walk into the wilderness. I looked at Chloe. She was staring at me, horror in her eyes. We need to find out how deep this goes, I said. Because if they were willing to kill me, what else had they done? We returned to the cabin in silence. The atmosphere had shifted. It wasn't just a safe house anymore. It was a war room. Chloe went for a walk in the woods behind the property to clear her head. I sat on the porch, wrapped in a heavy wool blanket. The Vermont night was descending, the shadows stretching long and thin across the grass. I watched a moth bat against the porch light. Thump, thump. My mind drifted to Eleanor, my wife. She died 6 years ago. A massive stroke, the doctors had said. Catastrophic cerebral hemorrhage. I had accepted it. People die. Bodies fail. As a perfusionist, I knew the mechanics of death better than anyone. Pipes burst. Pumps fail. Systems shut down. But now, sitting in the cold, a new data point entered the equation. Eleanor had been healthy. Her blood pressure was perfect. She walked 3 miles a day. And yet she had collapsed 2 hours after Sunday dinner. A dinner Brenda had cooked. The screen door creaked open. Chloe came running up the steps, her boots thudding on the wood. She was out of breath, her face pale. She was clutching something to her chest, a small, burgundy book, with a leather strap. I found this in the attic, she said, her voice trembling. In Grandma's old steamer trunk. It was under the linings. Eleanor's diary. I took it from her. My hands felt numb, not from the cold, but from dread. The leather was cracked with age, but it still smelled like her lavender and vanilla. I opened it. The handwriting was shaky toward the end. I flipped to the last entry, dated 2 days before she died. I read the words out loud, my voice barely a whisper in the quiet night. Brenda made me tea again. It tastes bitter, like crushed aspirins. I feel so tired afterwards, like my limbs are made of lead. She keeps asking about the life insurance policy. She asks where the papers are. I told Arthur I feel sick, but he thinks it's just the flu. I don't want to drink it, but she watches me. The book fell from my hands. It hit the floor with a dull slap. My hands started to shake violently. Not a tremor of age, but a tremor of rage. Grandpa, Chloe whispered, stepping closer. Did Brenda kill Grandma? I closed my eyes. I remembered the tea. I remembered Brenda standing over Eleanor, smiling that tight, marble smile. Drink up, Mom. It's good for your throat. I had been in the other room, watching football. I had let it happen. I don't know, I said, opening my eyes. The tears were hot on my cheeks. But if she did, she's not just a thief. She's a monster. The door opened behind us. It was Linda. She held her phone like a weapon. I found something else, she said. Her voice was grim. I ran a background check on Brenda's maiden name, Jenkins. So? I asked, wiping my face. Her parents died in 2010 in Portland, Linda said. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Furnace leak. Accident? I asked. Ruled accidental, Linda nodded. But here's the thing. There was a sister, Valerie Jenkins. Where is she? She lives in Oregon. She hasn't spoken to Brenda in 14 years. I just found her number. Call her, I said. Put it on speaker. Linda dialed. The ringtone echoed in the silent cabin. 1, 2, 3. Valerie Jenkins? Linda asked. Who is this? The voice was wary, defensive. Rough, like someone who smoked too much. I represent Arthur Miller, Brenda Miller's father-in-law. Silence on the line. A long, heavy pause. I could hear a lighter flicking in the background. Is he dead? Valerie asked flatly. No, I said, leaning toward the phone. Not yet. I heard a long exhale, a sound of pure exhaustion. She tried, didn't she? The bitch finally tried. She drugged me, I said. She tried to leave me in an airport. She did the same to our parents, Valerie said. Her voice was cold, detached. Gas leak. But the detector had no batteries. I told the police she did it. They said I was jealous because she got the house. Can you prove it? Linda asked, her pen hovering over her notepad. I have a recording, Valerie said, from the funeral. She was drunk. She thought I was asleep in the back seat of the car. What does it say? She bragged about it. She called them useless eaters. My blood ran cold. Useless eaters. It was a Nazi term. A term for people who were a burden. Send it, Linda said. Now. 5 minutes later, an audio file arrived in Linda's email. We gathered around the laptop on the kitchen table. Martha poured herself a whiskey. Chloe stood behind my chair, gripping my shoulders. Linda pressed play. Brenda's voice filled the room. It was younger, slurred with alcohol, but unmistakable. They were weak, Val, just sitting there, wasting space. I did what had to be done. It was easy, free money, instant restart. Martha threw her glass against the wall. It shattered, shards of crystal raining down on the pine floor. She's a serial killer, Martha said, her voice shaking with fury. She's been doing this for decades. She killed her parents, I said, staring at the screen. She killed Eleanor. She tried to kill me, I added. And she's not done, Chloe said. She was looking at her phone. Her face was gray. What is it? I asked. A video message? Chloe said. From Dad. He sent it 10 minutes ago. Don't watch it, Martha warned. It's manipulation. I have to, Chloe said. He looks hurt. She pressed play and turned the screen toward us. Robert looked wrecked. He was sitting in the rental car, somewhere dark. His tie was undone, his eyes red-rimmed and wild. He looked like a man who had stared into the abyss and fallen in. Chloe, Dad, if you get this, I'm going to the police. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. He laughed, a broken, hysterical sound. I found something in Brenda's desk before we left. I took a photo. It's an insurance policy. On me. I leaned closer to the small screen. 2 million, Robert whispered. In case of accidental death while abroad. He looked at the camera, his eyes wide with terror. She was going to kill me too. After she got Dad's money, I was the loose end. She'd be the grieving widow. Twice. I'm turning myself in, Robert said. I can't do this anymore, I'm sorry. The video ended. The room was silent. The scale of her plan was terrifying. It was a clean sweep. Kill the father for the inheritance. Kill the husband for the insurance. Keep the daughter as a prop. He's a witness, Linda said. If he testifies, we have her. It's not enough, I said. Robert is compromised. He helped her. She'll flip it on him. What do you mean? Brenda is smart, I said, tapping the table. She'll say Robert drugged me. She'll say Robert planned the parents' death. She'll play the victim. She has no record. He has gambling debts and a motive. I looked at Eleanor's diary. I looked at the shattered glass on the floor. I stood up. The perfusionist was back in charge. The flow had to be corrected. We need her to confess, I said. To us. She'll never talk, Martha said. She's too careful. She will, I said, my voice hard as iron. If she thinks she's winning, if she thinks I'm still the confused, helpless old man she left on the curb. I looked at Linda. We're going to set a trap. We called the police, not the local sheriff, but the state detectives. Detective Kowalski arrived an hour later. She was a tall woman in a gray suit, her face lined with the kind of fatigue that comes from seeing too much human darkness. She sat at Martha's kitchen table listening to the routing of Brenda from the funeral. We have probable cause for an investigation, Kowalski said, rubbing her temples. But for an attempted murder charge on you? Or a homicide charge for your wife? We need more. A drunken rant 14 years ago is circumstantial. I'll give you more, I said. I was sitting by the window, watching the darkness press against the glass. How? Kowalski asked. I'll call her, I said. I'll tell her I'm confused. I'll tell her I'm alone. I turned to look at them. She thinks I'm wandering in the woods or sitting in a shelter. If she knows exactly where I am and thinks I'm vulnerable, she'll come to finish it. It's too dangerous, Chloe said, jumping up. Grandpa, no, she's a killer. She won't just talk to you. She'll hurt you. That's the point, I said gently. In surgery, you can't fix the blockage without opening the chest. You have to expose the heart. We'll wire the cabin, Kowalski said, looking at me with professional respect. Audio and video. My team will be in the woods. The second she produces a weapon or admits intent, we breach. I looked at Chloe. She was trembling. Trust me, I said. I monitored hearts for 40 years. I know when to stop the machine. They set up the equipment. Tiny cameras in the bookshelf, a microphone taped under the table. I dialed Brenda's number. It was late. My hand shook. Not from age, but from adrenaline. Hello? Brenda's voice answered on the second ring. It was sweet, concerned. The voice of a worried daughter-in-law. Brenda? I made my voice waver, adding a tremor of panic. I don't know where I am. Arthur. The tone shifted instantly. Sharp, alert. Where are you? We've been looking everywhere. Martha's cabin, I mumbled. But Martha's gone. She went to the store hours ago. It's dark, Brenda. I missed my pill. My head hurts. Is anyone else there? She asked quickly. No, just me. I'm scared, Brenda. Stay there, she said. The sweetness was back, but it was thinner now. I'm coming to get you. Don't call anyone else. You'll just confuse them. I hung up. The silence in the room was heavy. She's coming, I said. She's in Boston, Kowalski said, checking her watch. If she drives fast, she'll be here by morning. We'll be ready. That night was the longest of my life. The police hid their cars down the road. Kowalski and her partner stayed in the spare room. Chloe and Martha were upstairs, hidden in the back closet with the door locked. I sat in the armchair in the living room, waiting. I didn't sleep. I watched the shadows crawl across the later as the moon moved. I thought about the woman who had sat at my dinner table for 15 years, the woman who had cut my granddaughter's birthday cake, the woman who had poured my wife's tea. She wasn't coming to rescue me. She was coming to correct an error. Morning broke. The light was gray and flat. 9:00 a.m. The house was deadly silent, the kind of silence that amplifies every creak of the floorboards. I sat in the armchair wearing my rumpled clothes. I let my mouth hang open slightly. I practiced the vacant stare I had worn for 6 months. 9:55 a.m. The sound of tires crunching on gravel. Slow, deliberate. My heart rate spiked. Thump, 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 thump. I forced myself to breathe slow. A car door slammed, footsteps on the porch. Heavy, confident. Knock, knock. Arthur? It's me. I didn't answer. I just stared at the unlit fireplace. The doorknob turned. I had left it unlocked. Brenda stood there. She was wearing a beige trench coat and leather gloves. Her hair was perfect. She smiled. Oh, Arthur, look at you. You look terrible. I'm confused, I mumbled, not looking her in the eye. Where's Robert? He's parking the car, she lied smoothly. She stepped inside and closed the door. Click. She turned the deadbolt. She locked us in. Sit down, she said, her voice dropping the facade. It wasn't a request. I stayed in the chair. I want to go home. Did you take your pill? She asked, walking toward me. She didn't look around for Martha. She didn't care. No. I lost them. She reached into her oversized purse. She didn't pull out a pill bottle. She pulled out a syringe. It was pre-filled with a clear liquid. We need to calm you down, Arthur. This will help you sleep. I looked at the needle. I don't want a shot, I said, my voice rising. I want Robert. Robert isn't coming, she said. She took off her gloves, dropping them on the table. Why? I asked. I needed her to say it for the microphone. Why isn't he here? Because you're a burden, Arthur. She sighed, like she was explaining math to a toddler. You're expensive. You take up space. And Robert is weak. She stepped closer. She tapped the syringe to clear an air bubble, a professional gesture. What is that? I asked, shrinking back into the chair. Potassium chloride, she said casually. My blood ran cold. I knew potassium. In high doses, it disrupts the electrical signals of the heart. It causes immediate cardiac arrest. Stops the heart, she said. Painless. It looks just like a heart attack. At your age? No one will even do an autopsy. Like Eleanor? I asked. She paused. The needle hovered in the air. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, followed by a cold, reptilian amusement. Eleanor was weak, she said, stepping right up to my chair. Just like you. 1 cup of tea, and she was gone. She didn't even fight. And my money? Mine, she said. Her eyes were dead. All mine. It's compensation for dealing with you people. And Robert? I pressed. What happens to him? Robert is a loose end, she said, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. He'll be so sad when his father dies today. Maybe sad enough to jump off a bridge next week. Who knows? She raised the needle. She was going for the vein in my neck. Time to sleep, Arthur. I looked her in the eye. I dropped the act. The vacant stare vanished. Now, I shouted. Crash! The kitchen door exploded inward. The front windows shattered as a tactical team came through the glass. Police! Drop the weapon. Drop it. Detective Kowalski burst into the room, her service weapon drawn and leveled at Brenda's chest. Brenda spun around. For a split second, she looked like a cornered animal. She looked at the needle, then at me, then at the police. I saw the calculation in her eyes. She thought about lunging. She thought about finishing me before they could stop her. Drop it or I shoot. Kowalski screamed. The metal syringe clattered to the wooden floor. It rolled under the table. Brenda raised her hands. Her face went blank. The rage, the arrogance. It all vanished behind a mask of boredom. No fear, no regret. Just the annoyance of someone whose flight had been canceled. They slammed her against the wall. I heard the snick-snick of handcuffs. Brenda Miller, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Arthur Miller. Chloe ran down the stairs, tears streaming down her face. Martha was right behind her. You monster, Chloe screamed. You killed Grandma. Brenda looked at Chloe. She didn't look like a mother looking at a child. She looked like a scientist looking at a failed experiment. Stop. You were next, you know, Brenda said softly. College is expensive. A chill went through the room that was colder than the Vermont winter. Get her out of here, Kowalski snarled. They dragged her out the door. I watched through the broken window as they shoved her into the back of a cruiser. I sank back into the chair. My legs gave out. The adrenaline crashed, leaving me shaking. It was over. The tumor had been removed. But looking at the shattered glass and the syringe on the floor, I knew the recovery would be long. 2 months later, the courtroom was a box of polished wood and stale air. The air conditioning hummed a low, constant drone that vibrated in my teeth. I sat in the front row. Chloe sat beside me, her hand gripping mine so hard her knuckles were white. Robert took the stand. He didn't look like my son anymore. He looked like a ghost wearing a prison jumpsuit. His shoulders were slumped, his skin gray and pasty from 60 days indoors. He refused to look at me. He refused to look at Brenda. She told me it was the only way, Robert whispered into the microphone. His voice cracked. She said Dad was expiring. She said the money would be gone if we waited. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Sarah Jenkins, no relation, projected an image onto the screen. It was the notebook police had found in a rented storage unit under Brenda's maiden name. It was a ledger, a business plan. The courtroom went silent as the jury read the handwriting. It was neat, precise, almost architectural. Project A, parents completed, yield $450,000. Project B, Eleanor, completed, yield $200,000. Project C, Arthur, pending. Projected yield $3.5 million real estate. Project D, Robert, contingency. Projected yield $2 million. The jury took 2 hours. I waited in the hallway, pacing the linoleum floor. My legs ached, but I couldn't sit. I felt like I was back in the waiting room of the ICU, waiting to hear if a patient had survived the night. When the bailiff opened the doors, the air inside felt heavy, charged with static. Guilty, the foreman read, on all counts. First-degree murder, attempted murder, fraud, conspiracy. I watched Brenda. I expected tears. I expected screaming. I expected her to look at me with hate. She did none of those things. She just stared at the court seal on the wall behind the judge. Her face was blank, empty of anything human. She looked bored, like she was waiting for a bus that was running late. She didn't look at Robert. She didn't look at Chloe. To her, we were just bad investments. Assets that had failed to perform. A week later, I drove to the state penitentiary. The building was a fortress of concrete and razor wire. It smelled of industrial cleaner and despair. I sat on a metal stool on one side of a thick glass partition. Robert sat on the other. He had shaved his head. He looked older than me. He picked up the phone. His hand was shaking. "I'm sorry, Dad," he wept. The tears were real this time. I was weak. I was scared of the debt. She made it sound so logical. I looked at my son. I saw the boy I had taught to ride a bike. I saw the man who had walked away from me at an airport curb. "I know," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was breaking. "Can you ever forgive me?" he asked. "For leaving you? For leaving Chloe?" I looked at the guard standing by the door. I looked at the shackles on his wrists. "I'm working on it," I said honestly. "But forgiveness is a process, Robert. It's not a switch. You have 12 years. I said. "Use them. Figure out who you are when you aren't trying to be rich." I hung up the phone. I placed my hand on the glass. He placed his on the other side. I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I walked out of the prison and into the bright, blinding sunlight. The air tasted sweet after the stale, recirculated breath of the visiting room. Chloe was waiting in the car. She had the engine running. She held up a thick envelope. Her eyes were shining. "I got in," she said. "Law school?" I asked, opening the door. She nodded. "Older law, advocacy. I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else," she said fiercely. "I'm going to catch the Brendas of the world before they can hurt anyone." I smiled. It was the first time in a year that my smile reached my eyes. "Drive," I said. 2 years later, I stood in the cemetery. The grass was thick and green over Eleanor's grave. The headstone was clean, the marble shining in the afternoon sun. I wasn't wearing a windbreaker. I was wearing a warm coat. I wasn't shivering. Chloe stood beside me. She looked different now. Taller, confident. She was graduating next week, top of her class. "She'd be proud," I said, touching the cold stone. "She'd be proud of you," Chloe corrected. She squeezed my arm. I looked down at the grave. For a long time I had felt guilt. Guilt that I hadn't seen the signs. Guilt that I had let a wolf into our home. But the guilt was fading, replaced by a quiet resolve. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the survivor. I checked my pockets, a reflex I would never lose. Keys, wallet, phone, pills, the real ones. For my blood pressure, I had everything. I had my mind. It was sharp as a scalpel. I had my granddaughter. I had my life. I took a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. It filled my lungs, oxygenating my blood. I was alive and living well. That was the greatest revenge of all. We walked back to the car. The sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. I looked back at the grave one last time. "Goodbye, Elle," I whispered into the wind. We won. Chloe started the engine. The car hummed to life. "Where to, Grandpa?" she asked. "Forward," I said. We drove out of the iron gates. The past was a rear-view mirror, shrinking with every mile. The future was the road ahead, wide open and unwritten. I closed my eyes and listened to the hum of the tires. The robin was singing in my memory. But this time, I wasn't alone on a bench. I wasn't waiting for a family that wasn't coming back. If you're listening to this, check your pills, trust your gut, and if someone tells you to stay on a bench, to wait, to be a good patient, stand up, turn around, and walk away, because you are not done yet. As the road stretches out before us, Remember that truth always finds a way to the light, no matter how long it takes. If Arthur's fight for dignity and survival moved you, please honor his journey with a like, and subscribe to join our community of survivors and storytellers. Because every story matters, and we are just getting started.